Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into one of corporate lore's most captivating sagas, Apple's Phoenix Rise, often called the Steve Jobs comeback. This isn't just a business story, it's really a masterclass in strategic rethinking, steeped in audacity and, well, visionary leadership. We're going to try and understand how Apple went from the brink of irrelevance to becoming this trillion-dollar behemoth, and maybe what key lessons we can pull from that.
That's right. And our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack those key decisions, the pivotal moments, and the underlying philosophies that drove this incredible transformation. We're not just rehashing old news here. We'll try to reveal some surprising facts, maybe some insights that still influence the business world today, helping you gain a quick, yet, I think, thorough understanding of this fascinating turnaround.
Okay, so to really appreciate the gravity of Apple's comeback, we have to set the scene. Imagine 1996. Apple was, and this isn't really an exaggeration, in tatters. They were hemorrhaging money. Their market share in the personal computer industry was negligible. And a string of poor decisions had really caught up with them.
Yeah.
Things like their insistence on a closed ecosystem, which at the time, really limited their market reach. And frankly, some pretty lackluster product launches.
It's genuinely difficult to overstate how dire the situation was.
Yeah.
I mean, unlike Windows PCs that could be built by dozens of manufacturers, Apple insisted on controlling both the hardware and the software. That made their products expensive, kind of niche,
Right.
and this left them vulnerable. Apple was, well, truly at a crossroads, making decisions that would determine whether the company would survive or just, fade away into tech history.
And what a decision they made. At that critical juncture, the board did something pretty unthinkable, right? They brought back their prodigal son, Steve Jobs, who, ironically, they had ousted back in '85.
Yeah, the very same board, essentially.
And the mechanism of his return was pretty ingenious, wasn't it? It came through the acquisition of NextT, the company Jobs had founded after leaving Apple.
Exactly. And what's truly intriguing here is how this move wasn't just about bringing back a founder. It was a calculated gamble, almost a desperate one, you could say, that would profoundly alter the trajectory of the company and, well, yeah, technology history. Many at the time questioned it, given his previous difficult departure, but it was a strategic lifeline.
So Jobs is back. The company's basically on life support. Where does he even begin? What's the very first strategic move he makes to turn this ship around?
Well, his immediate focus was ruthless simplification. That seems to be the key. He swiftly embarked on restructuring Apple's entire product line, streamlining what had become this overwhelming and, frankly, unfocused array of offerings. Then, at the iconic Macworld Expo in 1998, he unveiled something really special, the iMac. He famously heralded it as a beautiful piece of work.
And it really was, wasn't it? This seamless, colorful, all-in-one computer, a true synthesis of function and form. I remember hearing a surprising detail about the iMac, though. Wasn't one of its initial marketing challenges not just the technology itself, but convincing users to abandon something as simple as floppy disks?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic point, and it highlights Jobs' foresight, or maybe his stubbornness, depending on how you look at it. The iMac was designed without a floppy drive at a time when they were ubiquitous. It was bold, almost unheard of,
Yeah.
forcing users to adapt to CD-ROMs and this new thing called USB. So this wasn't merely a new product, it was really an embodiment of a new ethos. It was a strategic pivot towards simplicity, elegance, and user-focused design that would come to define Apple for decades, pushing the industry forward, maybe kicking and screaming sometimes.
Yeah, probably. And the impact was pretty immediate.
Oh, yeah. Within months, Apple had sold hundreds of thousands of iMacs, reclaiming its footing in a fiercely competitive market.
But Apple's transformation wasn't just about launching hit products, was it? Jobs initiated something even more fundamental, a deeper cultural shift within Apple. I remember hearing a story, maybe it's apocryphal, maybe not, about Jobs drawing a 2x2 grid on a whiteboard to simplify the product line. Was that really how he slashed hundreds of products down to just 4 main categories? What did that actually look like internally?
Oh, the 2x2 grid isn't apocryphal at all. It's actually a very famous anecdote, and it perfectly illustrates his approach, what we'd now maybe call strategic minimalism. He divided the grid into consumer pro and desktop portable.
Simple.
Yeah, super simple. And he famously told his teams, basically, this is it. These are the 4 products we make. He slashed hundreds of others, printers, different Mac variants, all sorts of things. This wasn't just about cutting costs, though that helped. It was a radical bet. A bet that doing a few things exceptionally well was more important than doing many things just adequately.
That takes discipline.
Immense discipline. To say no to good ideas to focus on potentially great ones. Jobs' determination here was, almost like a general fending off unnecessary battles, choosing to focus resources on the key engagements that truly mattered for survival and growth.
That sounds incredibly drastic, though. Some critics back then probably argued, okay, this extreme focus, it's going to alienate certain professional users, right?
Yeah.
People who relied on Apple's maybe broader product range from before. Was that a real concern, or did the sheer desperation of the company's situation just make even radical changes seem acceptable?
Oh, it was absolutely a concern. And Jobs certainly faced internal resistance and plenty of external skepticism. You had people saying, what about the Newton or other niche products? But the company was in such dire straits that radical action was, well, probably seen as the only way forward. The market had become saturated and honestly confused by Apple's very diffuse offerings before that. So this strategic minimalism, by removing that choice paralysis and focusing engineering and marketing muscle, actually ended up making Apple's products more appealing, more understandable to a wider audience. And that included professionals who eventually benefited from that focused excellence.
Right, clarity over clutter.
Exactly.
And the financial repercussions of this streamlined focus, they were pretty swift and profound, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Apple's revenues surged. It grew from about $5.9 billion in 1997, just before the iMac hit big, to nearly $10 billion by 2000, a huge jump.
But that wasn't all. Jobs had another masterstroke, kind of building up his sleeve, I think. The simultaneous development of a broader ecosystem, something that would eventually transcend just computers. We're talking about the iMac's successors, like the iPod in 2001, and of course the game changer, the iPhone in 2007.
Yes, and it's fascinating how these devices didn't just redefine their respective markets. They fundamentally redefined what a device could even be. They didn't really fit conventional categorization. The iPod wasn't just an MP3 player. It was, a fashion statement, a cultural phenomenon tied to iTunes.
Right, the white earbuds everywhere.
Exactly, and the iPhone. Well, it kicked off the era of personal digital convergence that we're still living in today. That's ubiquitous. Marrying communication, music, internet, and a powerful computer right there in your pocket. And crucially, it wasn't just about the hardware. It was the seamless integration with iTunes and then, critically, the App Store. That whole package locked users into an experience that was just incredibly sticky.
And that ecosystem play just fueled incredible growth. Apple's market capitalization grew exponentially, eventually reaching that monumental $1 trillion mark in 2018, the first U.S. company to do so. But it wasn't solely the financial growth that captivated everyone. It was Jobs' distinctive way of doing things, his modus operandi, perfectly encapsulated by his famous quote, "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower."
Indeed. His tenure, right up until his passing in 2011, was marked by this relentless pursuit of product excellence, a near-obsessive focus on design aesthetics. The look and feel mattered immensely, and building this enviable customer loyalty that, most companies can only dream of achieving.
It's true.
And today, Apple's story, from near collapse to global dominance, it's a standard case study. It gets analyzed in countless boardrooms and business schools because the underlying economic stakes involved in such a transformation were huge. It really highlights not only the resilience of one of the world's largest corporations, but also the transformative power of having a strategic vision coupled with relentless and often, let's be honest, uncomfortable execution.
So that was our deep dive into Apple's incredible comeback story, a really powerful example of strategic vision and, relentless execution. We hope this offered you a bit of a shortcut to understanding a complex and truly fascinating corporate transformation.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Given Apple's journey back from the brink, what might it suggest about the role of simplicity and intense focus in overcoming challenges? Not just in business, but maybe in any complex system you encounter. What stands out to you from this deep dive that might apply beyond the tech world? Something to think about.